Welcome back, everybody, Mountain Connections. All parents and even kids, if you're not at school, which you should be, but all parents will want to pay attention to this next conversation coming up. It is a huge impact, a huge topic that's going on right now. We're talking kids and technology, and here to help deep dive into this topic from Nexus IT, we have Travis and Earl. So thank you two for coming on this morning.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
So this is something I'm super excited to talk about, kids and tech, because I feel like when I was a kid, that's when technology was first starting to kind of take a stride. Like the first iPhone came out when I was a sophomore in high school, so I've seen technology kind of start to take over. Technology is now being implemented everywhere with kids. So the first thing I'm going to ask, and we can just kind of have a roundtable topic on this.
Sure.
Screen time. What is a healthy amount of screen time? What's a bad amount of screen time?
Very good. And maybe before even diving into that, I would just preface and say, you see trends now, and if you're traveling in airports or you're simply hanging out in shopping, centers and stuff like that, kids are being given electronic devices at 6 months old,
right?
9 months old, 18 months old, right?
You see the parent hand their kid the phone and be like, "Here, honey, here's Pokemon Go."
Be
like,
quiet.
Just stop crying.
Yeah. It's a
babysitter.
It's totally.
It is.
Yeah, and certainly. Maybe there's nothing absolutely wrong with that, right? But there is scientific study that shows that too much screen time is unhealthy.
Okay.
And there's debate about how much is or isn't healthy, but somewhere potentially, for developing minds, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 to at the max 3 to 4 hours a day of screen time, and we're talking about anywhere from 18 years, and under.
Okay.
But the reality,
and they're starting to find now that there are kids that are 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds that have neck problems now because they're spending so much of their time outside
they get that hunchback
because they're like
going
this,
on,
right?
yeah.
There's a term, I can't remember what it is, something like they're getting like a tail or a horn growing on the back of their head. That's weird. But I mean, that's outside of the security risk, right? It's a health risk.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes people don't realize is, when you're on your phone, it's weird to be like sitting like this, so like kids will start to hunch back and you start to get that. And so it's not only, sometimes a development risk, it's just physically you are harming yourself and you don't realize that.
You're consistently having, even my own kids, they complain about, my neck hurts all the time. I'm like, get off your phone.
Right.
You're spending, and we have a generation where it's been extremely difficult to figure out how you manage this amount of screen time, right? And the thing is, the reality is, the time to set that properly with your kids is when they're smaller, right?
Yeah.
When they're teenagers, it's so hard to say like, okay, you're spending 8 hours a day on your screen.
So I'm lucky
You've got to figure out how to,
I'm lucky enough to have my wife is very proactive with this, and so what she tells my kids, and I've got teenagers, my kids range from 12 to 18, I've got 4 of them. My wife says for whatever amount of time you spend on your phone, what she looks at every day, you need to spend 3 times that doing whatever your hobby is or your hobbies are, away from the
screens.
Right?
And we're talking video games, we're talking TV, we're talking all that stuff, right? Not just the phone.
Not just that. My son plays baseball, and so she tells him, "Hey, listen, if you're going to spend 30 minutes, hanging out on Instagram, that's an hour and a half. You better have your bat, your glove. You better be out practicing, do whatever you need. So, luckily, I'm lucky enough to have her kind of cracking the whip. She should say that to me too sometimes.
And this is an interesting, how do you tell your kids enough is enough? Because again, when I was growing up, that's when technology was first starting to take. So we didn't have the accessibility we have nowadays. Like I remember when we were on 3G trying to get YouTube to load, and it was like, this is going to take 20 minutes to load a 2-minute video. We're done with this. Now everything's so instantaneous that it's so much easier to reach out.
Every phone nowadays can track your usage, and it can break down your usage by app. Right, so it's easy to look and say, I spent 6 hours on Facebook today.
And this is beneficial to parents. Parents can use this to monitor their kids' activities.
Right? Yeah. So that's from a teenager perspective, that's what my wife does. Every night right before she goes to bed, all the phones for all my kids, which is another topic, are sitting on the counter in the kitchen, plugged in. She goes through each one. And then if there's an issue, she'll send them a text message to that phone right there that says, here's what you did today. Fix it.
So Earl, you were mentioning during the break that there is a tech company that's kind of making a phone for kids.
Yeah, and we haven't even delved in and started talking about objectionable content or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
But we have a really cool local Utah company that started up in the last year called Gab Wireless. They have created an Android phone that has very limited capabilities. It's meant to be a kid's first phone.
Okay.
Maybe something that's appropriate for a kid anywhere from a toddler up into early teens. And it gives them the basics that they need out of a phone. It gives them phone, it gives them text, it gives them a camera, it gives them some limited access to some applications and things like that. It doesn't give them access to things that are potentially harmful. And then it also has very capable parental controls to allow you to limit screen time, limit activities and things like that. And we should mention that most phones now have those parental controls built into them. Apple certainly does, most Androids do. So you can go in and set the amount of screen time that you want to allow for your kid, or specific times that you're going to allow them to use on the device, those types of things.
And these are all password encrypted, so that way the parents can set the password so the kids can't change it on their own. Because again, I think that's one thing where it's like, well, I'm setting the limits on my kids' phones. Can't they go in and change it? Well, if you are good enough with passwords, you can keep it safe. Speaking of safety, you were talking about some applications that may be harmful. What type of applications are harmful in case of parents in there going, is it the Instagrams, is it the Twitters, is it the YouTubes?
And it's the tough stuff because it's what the kids want to be using, right? Our kids' generation right now, they love Instagram, they love Snapchat, right? And there's very significant potential for harmful exposure on those applications. Snapchat, I would hold off on giving your kids Snapchat as long as you possibly can.
I don't even have a Snapchat. Like I don't trust Snapchat. Snapchat is this wild frontier that I'm like, I am terrified to venture into that right now.
And that's funny because you're much younger than we are, right? But Snapchat, you can not anonymously, what you send to friends can be immediately deleted, or it automatically immediately deletes. And so adolescents use it a lot to send naked pictures of themselves to each other, or unsolicited naked pictures, which certainly you don't want your kids exposed to. Instagram, we were just talking, 14-year-old boys can certainly go find some very objectionable content on Instagram.
Really easily. I mean, they can go find those Instagram influencers, and again, I think I want to preface this with, social media can be very beneficial. It can be a way to connect. It can be a way to reach out, but at the same time, I think it's teaching your kids how to use these apps to a productive level, right?
Right. Well, I tell my kids, and I can't remember where I read it or heard it, but anything you post on social media, even if it was on Snapchat, you have to go with the mindset of it's going to be seen.
It's going to be there forever too. Anything you post on the internet is there forever. It's not going to go away. It is there.
Yeah, and I think you've keyed in on something pretty important here, Conrad, and that is that as parents, while there's a lot we can do, it's impossible to police everything, right? And there's also, a legitimate debate of how much should you police, right? At some point, you have to, turn the reins over to your kids and trust them as well. But you need to educate them. You need to educate them about what the potential dangers are to them, to their psyche, to particularly with adolescent girls, of predators who are using technology and the applications that they like to use to find victims and things like that. So educating your kids, about what is healthy, what is not, what is proper, what is not, what expectations are, and then letting them also police themselves is certainly part of the key to this whole thing.
Knowing that they're probably most teenagers are going to get interested. They're going to try, right? And so that conversation is probably the best thing you can do from a technology perspective to help them realize this may have lifelong circumstances. There was a study out on cheating in schools, right? And kids are now showing up at schools with literally a burner phone. So the teacher will say, hey, everybody turn in your phones for the test. They'll hand in their burner phone, right? The phone that's just a phone that they may have spent $50 on at the pawn shop, who knows? Right? And they've still got their actual phone to do whatever they need to do. These are conversations. The best thing you can do is have the conversation with your kids.
I think this all boils down to technology is a thing that's in our world. It's going to happen. Kids are going to be with technology through school, through smart boards or whatever, through iPads. That's how it's moving these days. It is about being a parent and parenting your kids and telling them what's right, what's wrong, and also having respect and faith in your child that they will do what's best, right?
Exactly. Now you can, and there's this misnomer out there, you can get viruses on your phones. So if kids are visiting sites, even some social media sites, they have the ability to get viruses or keyloggers on their phones that could be detrimental to themselves, their parents' home network. I mean, there's lots of other things that this can grow legs, right?
Yeah.
It's the conversation. It is. And then setting whatever your screen time is. My house, we tell our kids 90 minutes a day is what we want to see on your phone. Anything over that,
it's a little too much,
right? You can catch up on Instagram and even check Twitter, do whatever you need to do in that amount of time.
Yeah, totally.
And then you can go have a great life and enjoy your friends and not enjoying your
friends through the screen. You can enjoy them in real life. We're reaching, I think, like 15 minutes now in this conversation, so we
could go all day.
We could go all day, seriously, and I would love to go all day. Unfortunately, the director's yelling in my ear right now. Sorry, Travis.
This has been fun. Thank you so much, Conrad.
If people want more info on Nexus IT and maybe any of these topics, where can they go to?
NexusITC.net, locally at 435-487-9099.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much.
For
And
having
again,
us.
we could go on this all day. It would be fantastic. Unfortunately, we can't because we will have other guests. So thank you,
Thanks,
you
guys.
two, for coming on.
Thanks a lot.
Guys, we got tons of Mountain Connections coming up. Go to that web address down below me to go check out more on Nexus IT. We got more coming up after this commercial break. We'll be right back.